We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. The Township of Alnwick-Haldeman respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Approval of the agenda as circulated. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular council session of Thursday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Phillips, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. So we have two delegations today, and our first presentation is by Liam Craig, member of the Heritage Alnwick-Haldeman Haw Committee, and it's regarding a refurbished school section map circa 1800. And he has members of that committee with him, Bob Dean and Joan Kelly. So be it resolved that council permit Liam Craig, member of the Heritage Alnwick-Haldeman Haw Committee, to take the floor to make presentation to council regarding a refurbished school section map circa 1800. Have a mover, please. Councillor Booth, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. Carried. Liam.
Good afternoon, council and staff. It's a special privilege to present to you a beautifully restored school section map for Haldeman Township, which is over 140 years old. In 1871, the Ontario Education Act decreed that it was the duty of the council of every township to divide their municipality into school sections. There were very specific directions as how this had to be done. Each section had to have boundaries no further away than 3 miles from each schoolhouse. Each section was to have no less than 50 children between the ages of 5 and 21 years old. And if we're to believe our ancestors, it had to be uphill from home to school and uphill from school back home so that they could all tell us about it.
Sorry, I just want to talk to there. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear Leah. Can we get feedback from other people on Zoom? Councilor, actually, Deputy Mayor Dixon, can you hear the presentation? Okay.
Yes, I can hear Liam fine. He doesn't need to hold, he does not need to hold the mic. I think it's that voice, Liam.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Now, should the town clerk neglect or refuse to draw a map showing the school sections, they would be liable for a penalty not to exceed $10, which today would be almost $300, working in inflation. The clerks for Haldeman during that period were Thomas Bingley from 1853 to 1881, followed by Thomas Lawless. The clerks in Alnwick Township during that same period were John Thackeray, John Coyle, and James Roberts. It's probable that one of them produced a similar map, which we might yet discover. The school section map is a unique part of our township's history, and we are grateful that the Heritage Committee member, Joan Kelly, took on this project and found a conservationist who was more than up to the task of restoring it. The map is ink and pencil, and it had tears, folds, cracks, and buckling when we discovered it. Unfortunately, some of the writing could not be recovered, but it is a precious and rare piece of history. Thank you, Joan, for your dedication, especially during the COVID restrictions, and we're grateful to council for funding the restoration. We anticipate Town Hall will display this map in a prominent area so it can be enjoyed by our residents. And we're hoping that as part of the Canada Day celebrations, we'll be able to present it to the community. At this point, I'm just going to display the map for those not here.
Closer. Can you get closer?
Take my dogs out when I get home. They've been driving me batty for the last couple of days.
It really is special. Their section, even though this isn't north-south, this is south in that direction, north in this direction. And as I said, it's over 140 years old. And we're just blessed to have something like this now available to us. Are there any questions? Councillor Phil?
Yes, so tell us about how you found it and who restored it.
Okay, we found it. It was behind the stage curtain here in this room, in a box, wide open, exposed, kind of rolled up loosely and hanging over the edge of the box. So it wasn't stored. There was no care in the storage of this map. And the lady who restored it is Basia Beklinski. She's a conservationist from Peterborough. She works out of North Church. She had a lot of challenges with this because of the condition, and with COVID there was delays in getting supplies. She had other projects to finish up when COVID hit. The day I took this up was the day basically that COVID struck us. So anyway, she had a lot of setbacks and she did become discouraged, but she loved the map and she really wanted to finish it the best of her ability.
What did she do, Joan? Did she plasticize it or?
There's a new backing on the back. It's a polyester, a woven polyester, and it's adhesed. It's put on as an adhesion, first of all, and then she used some products from Japan called Fenori, which is made from seaweed, a solution made from seaweed, and that helped kind of bind it together, to stabilize the paper. And there's a wheat starch solution too that she would use. All of it's acid free, and then this is a book binding. This is book binding tape for the edge. And the original dowels were on these ends. So
Okay.
this made for a better display.
Huh.
And she put the mile on. It's just loosely draped because there's a lot of reflection that comes off the mat with the mile. So,
What are you going to do with it, Joan?
well, we'd like you to display it
Yeah.
if possible. It would be nice to keep it in the township.
Well, it's certainly a treasure for the municipality, and to have had it restored from 140 years or more ago, that's quite a feat. She's done a really good job according to what you've said, and most of it legible now.
Yes.
It's a real keepsake.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's older than Jim.
yeah. And I like history, and I think the history that can be saved is so important for municipalities. And, there's been a lot of changes since then. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So you've done a great job, the Heritage Committee, and especially you, Joan, with taking that project on. And thank them. Thank the committee and your committee members for, taking on this challenge and coming out with such a beautiful piece of history.
Yeah,
You're
there's always
welcome.
something coming out of your committee one way or another, So
Yeah.
it's always interesting to hear what you're up to. So carry on, that's for sure.
Is it something that you would take and show at the schools? Like Grafton School and, yeah.
stable.
Yeah,
It'd be fun to have it at a fair or like a community gathering, or it was just up for people to look at, you know, when they're wandering around. You know, it gets big enough that, you know, a number of people could look at it at the same time. And, you know, it might serve well to do the rounds wherever that you decide that it should be shown.
I,
If you want to stand.
Where do you want to start? Here? We know that the county, when this was first found, which has got to be about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we got onto the county just in all innocence saying, what do you know about it? And of course, they knew nothing, but they expressed a great interest in having it possibly borrow it to display at certain times.
well, yes, because they're building the new county archives and museum.
Yes, I think that was in their mind.
Yeah, so when that,
Yeah.
those displays are going to be changed every so often, so maybe a little bragging rights for the former Haldeman.
Yes.
yeah. Bob, how well is that going to travel?
Oh, we could keep the roll and the stuff. I'm not worried about that now.
Okay.
She's on Zoom.
Oh,
Sure.
Right.
They couldn't, Yeah.
There shouldn't be a problem with that.
yeah.
You mentioned, Councillor Phelps, about you're interested in new things coming up. We are in the process of finding heritage things about this township that we just did not believe existed. I'm doing a little bit of PR work for the upcoming book. The Shelter Valley Creek, 10 miles long, had 24 mills on it. And you would always think of a mill being a grist mill or a sawmill, but this was comb manufacturing, wood spindles for furniture. It was an extraordinary stream, river it was at that stage, and it just had the right flow of water. You could have areas where you would almost have one mill pond feeding the next mill pond as it went down. So that's it, and we will, well, you may have seen in our minutes the list of stories we're putting together. And they're stories not only of that past, but one of the most difficult ones to dig out and find information about was a fairly recent one, which was Haldeman Court. You know,
Oh.
1970s, and it's taken nearly as much time to find out information about that as it was for 10 miles of Shelter Valley Creek. But it's done.
It's done. Well, that's good. That's good. Well done on this job. And have you got press on it yet? No? That a next step? Yes, yeah. Yeah, it needs some press report, I think, as well. So whatever you wish, whatever you wish.
It might be a nice place to display it.
Yeah. Lots of children there be seeing it. Love stories like this.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. And for all that you and your committee has put into this. Did I get a mover in the second one? Who was it?
Stephanie Mayor Gibson and Councillor Hawk.
Okay. Bye. Did we vote on it? Forget all that? We did. Okay, we got that all done. Well, that's a pretty nice presentation. I got caught up in it. Can't remember what I was doing. Okay, our next presentation is by Edith Kiff, President of the Grafton Green Thumbs, and the 2022 yearbook celebrating 97 years. Be it resolved that council permit Edith Kiff, President of the Grafton Green Thumbs, to take the floor to make a presentation to council. Could I have a mover? Councillor Booth, and second by Councillor Phillip. All in favor? Carried. Put a C on there so I know it's carried. Welcome, Edith, and we're ready for your presentation when you are.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm looking forward to telling you all about the Grafton Green Thumbs Gardening Club and what we do in the community. The Ontario Horticultural Association is a volunteer charitable organization that encourages interest in gardening and related environmental issues with horticultural societies and like-minded organizations by providing leadership and education. The Grafton Green Thumbs, previously known as the Grafton Horticultural Society, has been part of the Grafton community for 97 years. After viewing the January 12th budget meeting, it became clear that what we do within the community was not fully understood. Public charities rely on public support and drive funding from many different sources. As was noted, we are a volunteer organization, but we still have a budget to income and a budget for expenses. The grant from the township had been part of that income budget, and as you can appreciate, COVID has made fundraising difficult these past years. We are very much a community organization that encourages and supports an interest in gardening and related environmental issues by providing leadership and education for our members and non-members in our community. We appreciate and thank you for your recognition and appreciation of our gardening efforts at the Town Hall and Wicklow Heritage Park. Our members are also working on the gardens of the Grafton Heritage Park and Haldeman Court. Grafton Green Thumbs is more than members gardening. We have a monthly speaker platform, which is usually held in person at St. Andrew's United Church. However, our speakers' presentations have been on Zoom since the summer of 2020, at which time we opened them up to all residents of Grafton in recognition of the difficulties COVID was making for people to meet and enjoy a speaker. We offer a yearly $500 bursary to a student who is attending a college or university. To qualify for the bursary, the courses of study needs to be in the agricultural, horticultural, landscaping, or environmental fields. And the recipient of our 2020 Grafton Award was Trevor Dijon, and he's currently attending courses at Guelph University. Go-Go Gardeners are the youth group of our society. Our aim is to educate and involve the youth in gardening in the community. This program takes place at the Grafton Public School, in the greenhouse and outdoors after school during the school year. The students are taught all aspects of gardening, such as planting seeds, transplanting, weeding, harvesting the vegetables, which are then delivered to Fair Share. They also have created, to name a few items, garden art, wooden window boxes, hypertufa planters, and table centerpieces. Go-Go Garden, Go-Go Grafton Gardeners began in 1969, and except for the last 2 COVID years, has not missed a year. In addition, this year, we're planning to help the teachers with a seed planting project with some of their classes at the Grafton Public School, and later on to help them transplant the plantings out into the raised beds in May. As part of our beautification initiative for Grafton, we have the Outstanding Front Garden Award. This is presented to the gardener, who must be a resident of Grafton or a member of the Grafton Green Thumbs, based on the judge's visits throughout the summer. Planting trees is also one of the beautification projects that we participate in. For the millennium, 1,000 lilac trees, which is the plant symbolic of our club, were planted throughout the township, along roads and at churches and at schools. Recently, a tulip tree was planted at Haldeman Court in 2020, and a witch hazel at the Wicklow Heritage Park Restoration in 2019. This year, we'll be planting a native tree at Stone Afton Park in honor of our member, Anne Fenton. We've had our first annual sunflower contest, and at that time we had 140 participants either pick up or we mailed out seeds to them, and everybody got the same variety of sunflower to start with. And the sunflowers were judged in 2 categories, the largest sunflower head and the tallest sunflower, and I can attest that we had to go up on ladders in order to measure them. And it was for adults, and one classification was for 12 and under. There was a lot of friendly banter over the resident Facebook page as people talked about the squirrels that ate their sunflowers or the wind that blew them down, and lots of bragging rights as who thought they had the tallest sunflower. On October the 16th, the winners were announced by Liam Craig at the porch on the Grafton Inn, and the winners were presented with wooden birdhouses made by one of our members. Over the years, benches have been placed at numerous locations, such as the community centers of Vernonville, Fenella, and Grafton, at the Grafton Playground, in the Grafton Post Office, just to name a few. This year, we are replacing the bench at the Grafton Post Office. Our plans for the Year of the Garden includes the council support with the proclamation of Year of the Garden. We thank you for that. On June 18th, which is the National Garden Day, we will be doing a free native plant giveaway to promote an awareness of the need to plant native plants for biodiversity. We are looking to organize garden tours for members and residents of Grafton, and this is a much-needed social opportunity. We're working with the students at the Grafton Public to bring awareness to gardening in their environment. We have a public demonstration which will be going on March the 26th at the Heavenly Hands on seed starting, and our member Ben will be demonstrating and talking about seed starting, and we will be supplying the materials and seeds for the attendees to plant tomatoes and peppers. We had planned on doing a collaboration with the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario for Barnum House, but unfortunately that's been postponed as of last week. We are going to organize a fall harvest garden collection from members and residents' gardens for their surplus fruits and vegetables to be donated to a food charity. We hope that this enlightens you to who and what Grafton Green Thumbs are doing in the community, and that you will consider us for an honorarium.
Thank you, Edith. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Philip?
Yes,
First, I have to get my 2 cents worth in.
by all means.
I had the gardening Green Thumbs by my place one day. I think it was before, well, it was before COVID, and it was a really enjoyable opportunity to meet some of your team, and we had nice chats and talk over this plant and that plant and so on and so forth. But one thing that that I wondered about with your slideshow was, I don't miss the May sale. And I noticed in one of your pictures in the Hort sale there, that there was trees and shrubs, a picture of trees and shrubs. I don't remember ever seeing trees for sale at the sale. Was that a one-off or?
Well, with COVID, unfortunately, we weren't able to have our plant sale, which is one of our big fundraisers. However, we have had from time to time trees and shrubs at our plant sale, but it's not always a guarantee.
Mhm.
One year we had a person who had been doing some planting for, I think for himself, maybe to open up a garden center or something, had decided to close it down, and he reached out to one of our members and allowed us to come in and dig up all sorts of different shrubs and bushes. And I think that maybe was 4 years ago that we had that. So some years we do, but most of the plants are by donation, so it really just depends on what the members have or other people who decide to donate to the plant sale as well, having their gardens.
Okay, thanks.
Questions?
Anything further?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're more than welcome, and it's nice to have you here and hear from you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Sherry.
No, it's probably not a question for the presenter, but that was wonderful. It's nice to know all of the things that Grafton Green Thumbs does. But I wondered about your request for an honorarium, if that was an official request for today, if that was something that we would be discussing.
You can make a motion for that to be discussed in the budget part of the meeting if you wish.
Okay. So I think in light of the wonderful presentation and the work that Grafton Green Thumbs does in our community, that the request for an honorarium be spoken to during budget deliberation later in the meeting.
Is there a second?
Not deliberation, but budget conversation.
Okay, Councillor Phillip has seconded your motion. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. So we'll have that discussion when we get into our budget.
Oh, thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Item 6 is approval of the regular council session minutes of Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Could I have a mover, please, to approve? Deputy Mayor Gibson, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Item 8 is the beginning of the staff reports, and it's fire department. First one from Chief Dave Dawson. Today, the fire department's 2021 annual report. Be it resolved that council of the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman received the report from the fire chief dated March 17th, 2022 regarding the monthly update and the 2021 annual report for information. And further, that a copy of the 2021 annual report be replaced on the township's website. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Phillips, second. Councillor Hogg. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Dave?
Hi.
Hi. We're ready for, do you want to highlight anything in your reports or?
I don't have any specific highlights for you other than everything is there in my report. What I have spoken with CAO Troy Gilmore about is a future planning meeting with council with respect to the fire department and some of the information identified. And more importantly, some of the information that's important for us moving forward to the future.
Okay, thank you. It's a good report and well presented. So, council, do you have any questions or comments on this?
What truck do I get to drive here of all the pictures? Which one?
492.
Okay.
So to commission, you can start it.
I kind of like the white one.
You're welcome to it as well.
It's a good report, David. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else regarding the report? Not seeing nothing.
Sherry?
Thank you for this,
Just-
Chief. Sorry.
Just a question, and through you, Mayor, to Chief Dawson. I didn't realize looking at your calendar that you do orange training with the department. What does that entail?
So that was a presentation by their field educator, Jonathan Britton. And that was to educate us on the response protocols for Orange, to let them know what abilities that they have to provide the fire department, to let us know that the fire department, if in need, does have the ability to call on Orange for assistance. An example of that would be where we receive a medical call from our county paramedics, and that if we had to get somebody out of let's say a farmhouse that had a really long driveway, that we didn't have the capability, and we knew that the patient needed to go to a hospital, that they have the ability to land right on the property and assist with that. They're here for assistance. They're here for, they do a lot of transfers from hospital to hospital. And with respect to our emergency services and the golden hour rule of getting a patient in need to a proper trauma center, Toronto being one of the areas of the Toronto Center, I believe Kingston is another. But when you look at example Roseneath, the transport time to the Coburg Hospital is about a half an hour, that the Orange helicopter can be on scene in about 20 minutes and then get right to Toronto in 20 minutes. So it really does help the survival rate of our most difficult patients. And so they update us on how that works. There used to be some guidelines set out by Orange or by Ministry of Labor with respect to landing zones for Orange helicopters. And in fact, their pilots will do their own landing regardless of what you do. So there's a bunch of intercommunication training that needs to happen or should happen. And that is basically what we went through.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Phillip.
I do have one more thing that I wanted to share with you, Dave. I was at the drugstore yesterday, and the mother of one of your young firefighters grabbed me by the lapel and pulled me off to the side, and she works at the pharmacy, and she said, "I just want you to know that my son is getting great training through Captain Dawson, and he just loves working for him." And I thought, wow, that is a compliment that I should pass on to the boss, because the boss doesn't often get very many compliments. So there's a young trainee that's really eating up what you're serving, and he's obviously very happy, and that I'm sure that percolates through all of our young firefighters that are training under you now. So congratulations to you, Dave, and thanks for your good work.
I appreciate that. If you do happen to run into the lady again, if her son is any good at report writing, if you could have him step up, I could use lots of assistance with that.
Yeah, I do know the young man's name. She was very clear about what it was and that she wanted to be a full-time firefighter, but I'm not sure that's for the public record.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. And we look forward to doing the planning to move forward within the municipality with our fire services. And I'm sure you'll have a short-term and a long-term plan that we can review.
We're just going to have a great conversation to start.
That's just what we need to start.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your report.
Thanks.
Okay. Item 9 is the Treasury Department. And The first one is 2021's council remuneration and expenses. The motion is, be it resolved that the report from Nicole Leach Bahoon, treasurer, dated March 17th, 2022, read 2021 council remuneration and expenses be received and filed. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Phillips, second. Councillor Booth. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Anything from you, Nicole? Just straightforward?
I think the report speaks for itself. If
Okay.
there are Any questions?
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Whoops, sorry. Councillor Booth.
I just didn't know whether Nicole was going to present anything, but if not, yeah, there is a few questions. Considering through you, your worship, to the treasurer, that this is the first time we're actually seeing the 2021 actuals, I'm just wondering, Nicole, in 2020, we actually passed a policy that if there was any overages that were, it's called significant overages in budget lines, or that there would be a report filled out by managers. Have we received any of those for any overages for 2021?
I have not
You're
received,
in the wrong report.
yeah, well, that's okay.
Can you just hang
Oh,
on
is
to
it?
your?
Sorry, I'm way out of it then. I got too many papers. Okay,
It's
yeah, let
okay.
that go.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Got 6 things here, so I'm reading the wrong one. Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you. Pass then, nothing.
all in favor? Carried.
That's a pretty fast exit for you there.
Yeah,
Now,
no.
now you can start here. with
No, I'll let
this
Nicole
one
do
on
her
the-
speech first and then I'll.
Okay, item 9.2 is the Nicole's report and presentation of the final 2022 draft budget. Be it resolved that council of the Township of Alnwick Haldeman receive the 2022 draft budget papers and give direction to staff to finalize the levy and tax rates for 2022 and to be brought back to council for a bylaw approval at the April 7th, 2022 council meeting. Have a mover, please. Councillor Phillips, second. Deputy Mayor Gibson. Okay, we'll let Nicole present and questions be asked before I call for the vote.
Just want
Okay.
to share my screen here. Second.
You good for that, Nicole?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Can you hear me okay?
we can.
Okay, perfect. And can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So as you're aware, January 12th, budget was brought to council for a review, but what I'm going to be doing today is just going through with you the process that we've gone through since then, and you know how we've ended up where we are today, and presenting to council. So we'll just start with my first screen here. So budget impact. So the Township of Alnwick Haldeman tax levy increase for 2022 is 3.93%. So this is in line with the council directive to keep the levy increase under 4%. This equates to $21.48, and that's per $100,000 of assessment, and that's only for the lower tier portion of the taxes. As was stated at the last budget meeting, we won't have reassessment for another 2 years. And the Ontario yearly CPI and inflation rate increase as of October 2021 was 4.9%. That rate is in our municipal HR pay and performance policy, and that's what's been used to calculate the COLA wage increase within this 2022 budget. You will note on the bottom there that I've also highlighted that the insurance rates have increased. And as a result, there's a 1.3% levy impact this year over last. That is different than what you may have in front of you if you have what was distributed. I have made a couple of changes to my presentation, but any changes I have made, you will find as we go along are highlighted in yellow so that you can see that. So here's a breakdown of what this levy increase looks like year over year by department. A couple things that stand out here. One is that health and safety line that was moved to the admin budget, and staff have provided for first aid training for all staff and have renewed our contract with HR Downloads. Such that needed health and safety training modules will be available through the HR Download portal. Also of note is the new Rec and Culture line within this, which captures the staffing costs to run programs at our community centers. Now, this is a very visual look at where the tax dollars are going. The majority of the tax dollars, as you can see, are going to public works. And this is actually quite common in all municipalities for public works to make up the majority of the budget. The next largest piece of the pie is protective services, which is 16%. So that is your police services board, the OPP contract, and it also includes any animal control costs. And then from there, the next largest piece is being fire and emergency at 13% and admin at 10%. And as you're aware, following the January 12th budget meeting, the municipality was informed of an increase to the insurance premiums, which I mentioned earlier. Also, since that meeting, I met with the CAO and the department heads to review each department budget. The result is what you see here. You will see some increases, some decreases to budget lines. But the final result was a net change to the budget levy presented on January 12th by $750. So we'll talk about that some more as we go through the next few slides. And before I get too far into this slide, I want to mention that the library portion of the insurance increase was incorrectly reported on the consulting line in the budget papers. So that is one change that has been made after discussion with Elaine, our library CAO. It was determined that there was a $2,360 increase in the library budget that was incorrectly recorded on the consulting fees line and should have been on the insurance line. So contrary to my report to council, insurance has actually increased the budget by $84,444, not the $82,084 that you'll see in point number 1 within my report. So that is why the two numbers in yellow here are highlighted. Because those have changed since the distribution of this. In addition to the insurance increase, the first thing the CAO and I did was go through the budget and ensure that all of the wage increases were accounted for, that all wages and salaries were allocated to the appropriate departments, and this resulted in an additional 2.7% increase in the levy, as you can see here. So we started with 3.92% levy increase on January 12th, and after making changes to include the insurance and all wage changes, including incorporating $42,000 to the public works budget for overtime that wasn't accounted for. We were then looking at a 7.92% increase over last year to the levy, which is almost double. So that really established our starting point. And after that, I did meet with each of the department heads. We did continue to go through the budget line by line. And as you can see, there is a 2.6% decrease that we were able to cut out of the budget. And notably there, we were able to find areas of increase in revenue streams, as well as cost savings in the operating costs. So that left us with a gap of 1.4% or $90,000. So after careful consideration and consultation with the CAO, we have decreased the original contribution to reserves in the admin budget from $200,000 to $110,000. And we are recommending to council that this would be the best approach to bringing a responsible budget forward and maintaining that that level of levy increase under 4%. So the next couple of slides have been provided really to give you just some further detail of whether the changes were, so that you can see them by department. In some cases, we have reduced in one department and increased in another, especially if we found allocations of expenses that weren't in the appropriate department. But as you can see, just from the number of line items that have changed, that much time was spent by staff looking at every line item. So here's the remainder of the departments. And I want to just make note of the change under the library heading. As I noted before, I have changed that to say insurance. It did say consulting. The insurance increase was previously reported there as consulting fees, so that was incorrect. So that gives you some background, and I think what people most want to know is how is that going to impact me? So truly, although I think everyone's aware that property values have gone up a lot, but without having a new assessment, our average property assessment is still at $310,000, which equates to $1,760.38 for the average property for township taxes. Now that doesn't include the county or education rates, which will come back at a later date once the county has given us their rates. Then we'll let you know what the overall is per property. So really, that's just a summary of how we got from here to there. Like I say, the net impact was only actually a $750 change to the bottom line. But as you can see, there's been a number of changes throughout. And I really do have to thank all of the department heads, our library CAO and the library board and police services board and heritage committee, and council members, just for providing all the information and sitting with me, answering my questions, and coming up with a budget that I think will be within the parameters that council has outlined for us. So that's that's it. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions from council?
Now I can.
I'm not sure if I should let Councillor Booth go first, but I will.
No, we'll make it short and sweet. I know, Nicole, you're new to this, but in September 3rd, 2020, we passed a policy council did with the reporting of budget overages and whatever was considered a significant overage. As of this date yet in council, I don't believe we've ever received a report like that. I'm hoping that since you're a new treasurer here, that you will be looking over the 2021 actuals, because this is the first time now council is have an opportunity to look at the final numbers from spending last year. And just looking at the report quickly, I roughly counted 33 overages from last year's spending, that some of them were double the spending or maybe even triple the spending of what they budgeted for. And I'm just wondering if a report will come back to council from a written explanation from the managers or department heads about what their overages were.
So I was only recently informed of that policy. However, I certainly agree. It's probably about 2 weeks ago when we finally had the final 2021 numbers to bring in. Of course, they are draft. They are not audited yet. The auditors, however, have bumped up our audit date to the first week of April now. So you'll be happy to hear that they will actually be in earlier than originally stated. So I would say absolutely, if council would like to put forward that request, I have no problem with us at next council meeting bringing back any variances between budget and actual, now that we have those numbers. And I would say going forward, the plan is to provide each manager with their comparatives on a monthly basis, so that we are able to keep on top of it in advance. So hopefully by the time we get to the end of December each year, we won't have any surprises. So.
Yes, and originally I think that's what we were hoping for, is we would get the reports during the year instead of getting 20 reports next year of what went over, because part of that report that they have to fill out, for example, is if they're spending more in their budget, say in elevator repairs, the report asks them where are they going to get the money to cover for that. So the manager has to make arrangements to save somewhere else on a budget line. Just one other question, maybe you can, the capital that talks about for admin, I see they've taken out the air conditioners that they wanted here, but there's a line in there that says capital admin computer equipment for $25,978. And I didn't see that in December's budget from our previous treasurer. Can you just explain what that is, the 25,000?
Absolutely. So initially the budget amount in there was just the 5,000. We increased that by 20,978.26. And that was for the new servers and rack that was funded through the modernization reserve. So you will see an offsetting line at the very top of that budget in the revenues in the admin from reserves line. And that offsets that 20,978.26.
Okay, thank you. And just one other question, under capital for council computers, it talks about $7,000, which I don't believe I saw in the December report. I'm guessing, does that have to do with possibly replacing the council computers for the next council coming in?
Absolutely, that's what that is.
Okay, thank you. I just did want to say congratulations. It was a very detailed report and I actually enjoyed reading it with a cup of coffee and a donut. Nice to see a very thorough report. Thank you.
That's all from
That's
you.
it. That's why it's so good.
Can't believe
I
it.
can't put Nicole through the ringer on her first real day here of
Ooh.
actuals. No.
Any further questions from council? Do we want to address any comments about the Grafton Green Thumbs request?
Yes,
Sherry? Sherry had her hand up first here.
Yeah. I think since it was brought up, it's a good time to have a discussion on it. And I think if we cast our memory back when we were, drafting this budget, and we did not provide donation and commitment to Roseneath Agricultural Society, nor did we to Grafton Green Thumbs, but we did put some money into contingency in case they came back and asked for it. Because I think the issue was more about the process than it was about not wanting to support those two organizations. So I think the time now is that we've had the request, if we could move some money from contingency into those lines to support those two organizations.
We did receive it later. And I had that separate at one spot, but I don't know where it is right now with there was $2,000 we put into contingency.
Yeah.
And can you recall if the Green Thumbs were requesting 300 or 350?
300. Well, I don't remember, but we've provided them in the last 3 years that they got a donation. It was $300.
Okay.
I don't remember what they asked. I think they might have asked for 400.
Okay. No, I don't think they asked for 5. I see him.
She doesn't see me, but that's okay.
I saw Nicole's.
For a minute.
Now, Mayor Latchford, I saw Nicole's hand up first.
Oh, okay. Nicole, you please answer Greg's question.
So, just so council is aware, there is a $350 request that I'm aware of, and that has already been moved and is sitting in the Parks and Rec. You'll see it's the only item left in the miscellaneous line, and it is in there at $350. So if whatever council decides, that will either be left in or taken out, and there is still $2,000 sitting in the contingency.
So specifically in Parks and Recs for the Green Thumbs.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember that now. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I gotta let Greg speak
Before
first.
you make the motion, just let me have my soapbox stand. I just want to remind council that in May 6, 2021, we passed a policy regarding community grants and donation requests. Now, both organizations that you've mentioned, the Grafton Green Thumbs and the Roseneath Fair, are great organizations. I have no problem with giving them the money. The problem is they have to meet certain criteria to be considered to be eligible. The Grafton Green Thumbs did not fill out the full application form because they didn't want to provide the financial information that we require. And I'm going to go to, I have it right here, the actual policy. That won't work, figures. The actual policy says incomplete applications or information will not be forwarded to council for consideration. So looking at that, it was a mistake that we even received the request from the Grafton Green Thumbs because they struck out that in the application that they don't want to fill that out. The reason we have that there is to show the taxpayers and council to be open and transparent of where they're spending our money. Every other organization has agreed to fill out the form completely and everything like that and send it in. I have no issue. There's never been an issue with refusing them or that. The issue with the Roseneath Fair was they didn't hand in their application on time. And if you actually read it in there, it says it's their responsibility to acknowledge that once we receive it, we date stamp it, and we will send back to them within 7 days that they've received it. So I'm not going to vote for the Grafton Green Thumbs to get money. We did make a sort of arrangement that we gave them $350 in the works budget that they could, Brian has the authority to give them that money if they show receipts in that to Brian. But I think it's extremely wrong if we're going to go against our policy when it talks about donations and grants when they didn't follow the procedures.
Sherry?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, and question to Nicole. What is the difference in municipal accounting terms between a donation and commitment and honorarium? Or is there one? Is it?
I think it's more of a perception thing than anything, Sherry. I
Okay.
don't know that there's truly it's not like we get some sort of, it's not like having a business or personal where there's, a benefit to a registered charity who can issue a donation. This is very different. I think it really does come down to perception.
Yeah. So I guess and maybe we should have asked these questions while we had them there during the presentation, but is Grafton Green Thumbs aware that we are going to be offsetting their expenses to a maximum of $350? Because typically that donation went to expenses. It's really, it's the same thing, but it's different. And I guess, have they come back to ask for an additional amount, or have they come back to confirm that they are going to be receiving the $350?
They've just asked for reconsideration today, I think.
I don't think they know they're getting it.
And I don't believe they know they're in the public works budget, do they?
So after the council meeting, when that was decided, I did send out a letter to Green Thumbs to make them aware that council had set aside $350 and that they had to provide receipts in order to obtain that $350. Then following that, Edith met with CAO and I to discuss receipts and what their committee did, and that's why we want the suggestion that she come to council today to give you an overview of what Green Thumbs is all about.
Yeah. So out of that, so if they spend the $350, they're to provide the receipt.
Yes, it's to a maximum of $350 is how the letter was worded.
Okay. That's a good compromise, I think. Greg?
It is. It's actually the same thing. It's that we're going to ask for the receipts in the end. I'm just wondering, Pat, in that discussion then with you and Edith and the CAO, did she agree to the receipt, showing the receipts, or because it sounds like, did she go back to her committee and they've agreed to do the receipt thing, or are they now looking at going back to the grant?
So her committee had reviewed the council session when we talked about an honorarium, and that's why she had mentioned it today. She was wondering, in lieu of doing the receipts, that they be given an honorarium.
So they don't want to do the receipts. They want to go back to the original request.
Correct.
Okay, so there's my point made. We did make an exception to say that we will sort of bend the rules a little bit and we'll give Brian the money, and all they have to do is show the receipts. But if they don't want to do that, then it sounds like they don't want us having anything to do with the financial information that we receive. And that's breaking the policy that was passed May 6, 2021. So we shouldn't be looking at it then.
Just, I think for Green Thumbs, because it is a small amount of money, I think it was more, not that they didn't want to share the receipts with council, it was more just the cumbersome of sharing the receipts, not, I don't think they didn't want to share, not share them, they just thought it was a lot of work for $350.
But they
I'm-
could even submit them at the end of the season. They don't have to submit them every time they buy something.
I'm sorry if they
They have
feel
a
it's
treasure.
inconvenient that they have to show receipts, but every employee in the town, when you use your P card, has to show a receipt. So if Daryl goes out and spends $10, he has to show a receipt for it. So whether it's $300 or $3,000, that makes no difference to me.
Anything else?
So that does not address, because that was in my my comment also included the Agricultural Society, and I think, you know, I think Councillor Booth has made some excellent points, and I think at the time, you know, we took a stand and made a point, and I'm hoping that that got across loud and clear to the organizations who are submitting applications for funding. But, you know, I still think that over the course of how many years that we've supported these organizations and what they've brought, it's, you know, whether we actually provide the Agricultural Society with an honorarium, or we make them aware that there's funding available, there's funds there. If they need some assistance this year, they can apply. My guess is, you know, going back to the Grafton Green Thumbs, that, you know, it is, they're probably not organized in terms of there's one person that's purchasing supplies and keeping track of expenses. It's a volunteer group. So, you know, do we value what they do for us, and do we want to bend and provide them with that?
It's okay, Mike, you go ahead.
Well, Councillor Booth, my friend.
Uh-oh, sounds like Dear John letter.
Yeah,
Could be.
I think that if it were me and my decision, I would have Pat pen something to the effect that given the extended service that they have provided this township over the years, that we will consider the grant or the honorarium. But going forward, they need to comply with the regulations as set out in our bylaw. And I don't think that's too much to ask. We've warned them, and I would do the same thing with Roseneath and say, you know, this is a one-time only, and I know that opens Pandora's box, but we're after budget now. The requests are all in. I think it would only be these two. And if they ignore it a second time, then we've done our best.
Okay.
That would be my position, and I'm sorry. I know you're right, but I know these people do this, and I know you're not arguing that. I know they do it out of
Faithfully.
good service, but they missed the post once here with, you know, change is tough. I think the argument that they don't have anybody to do the paperwork is probably accurate. And I think Deputy Mayor Gibson said that. But now they'll have a year to prepare that going forward. And I just don't want to lose either of those groups because of this particular item. Would be my take on it.
Okay. So if we go that route, we could always make the motion that we, that's the policy, but we're making these exceptions this time. And, we've got Grafton Green Thumbs who've just told us they've been here 97 years, and Canada's celebrating the 100th anniversary of horticulture. And, what the policy did was put in changes as well. And Roseneath Fair is 152 years old. And in the initial agreements, from what I've been told, when years and years ago, when they made those agreements, it was agreed upon that the municipality, which was Alnwick at the time, each year would give the fair board $2,000. And, it's so somewhere that's in their books, and that's written. I've never seen it, but I keep being told that. And I don't know whether there's copies of that here or whatever. But such long-standing service by generations over their services, I think it doesn't, I get Greg's point too, but sometimes when you're dealing with policies, you're not thinking of what might or could happen. And if we give these two organizations the grace this year, I'm okay with that as well. I would rather do that than lose them, lose their work, or suffer the criticism on behalf of the municipality, because it can only be critical what's been done when they've depended on those funds for all these years. So I would support it as well. Greg?
I could agree with what Councillor Mike's saying and yourself for the Grafton Green Thumbs, if they were willing, if they were told that they could just hand us receipts and they could get their money. But it sounds like to me, Mike, whether we tell them we're going to let you do this year, they have no intentions of showing us receipts, and they don't want to show the financial.
Well, the Fair Board showed the financials.
Well, and I guess my second question is more to Pat Kemp. Is council allowed, Pat, to make a motion that breaks a policy that's been voted on? The policy clearly states that if the applications are not filled out in full, then they shouldn't even come to council. So I need a ruling on whether or not we can even do this, whether you call it honorarium, grant, giveaway, whatever, it's all the same. It's a donation and it's a commitment.
So council should stick with the policies that they create, because it does, why make policies if you're not going to follow them? However, you do have the ability, if council decides as a whole and the majority agrees that they want to do an exception, council does have that right to do that.
So do we vote? Do we have to remove that policy then because we've broken the policy, or how do you have a rule and then you don't follow it and say, that's
So
what
you would have to do an amendment to the policy to say that in this circumstance that you're going to allow someone to receive money without meeting the criteria of the policy. But you are correct in the fact that once you make a policy, that's why you make a policy, so that everything is equal and everything is the same for everybody that applies.
So is that a notice of motion that has to be made, or can it just be passed at a regular council meeting like this without any notice?
It's probably better if you gave notice of motion.
But this money is already in the budget as well.
Yeah, it's under contingency. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that we made a policy August 6th, 2020 or 2021, whatever, and now we're breaking that policy.
You know, I'm gonna, can I interrupt? Because
Yes,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think, as a matter of point, Greg, I would argue we're not breaking that policy. They have come back, this organization, and asked for an honorarium. We denied them a donation through our donations and commitment list. We put money into contingency so that we could address when people or organizations came and asked for special circumstance for honorarium. So, you know, are we breaking that policy? And I agree. I mean, I was adamant that go in. I think that's important, you know, when we, for the transparency of the township, that, you know, when people are asked to, organizations asked to do particular procedure, they follow it. However, I think, you know, the first year we have to use some common sense. And if we go, you know, this year we go back and say, that contingency was set up for that purpose. We had that discussion. You know, maybe that was the time then to say, those two organizations come back and ask for money. We've already voted on it. We can't set aside money in our contingency for either one of those organizations. We didn't do that at the time we had that discussion. It's to my recollection.
But see, Sherry, you look at the contingency fund different than I do. Those two groups were denied. I look at the contingency fund that if a new group comes to us to council that wasn't around last September when they had to hand in an application, that council had some money sitting aside, that if the Friends of Grafton and Alnwick baseball team comes and just got formed this year, that we would have some money for a contingency fund. I didn't vote on a contingency fund that two groups that didn't follow the rules and didn't follow the policy can now come forward and ask for money once they were denied. That was voted on by council. And if you look at that, when it was voted on, it was turned down. I don't believe, and I could stand correct, Pat, if I'm wrong, that if it was voted and turned down by council, can they come back within a year and ask for money again? And whether you call it an honorarium or a commitment or a donation, it's all the same.
Well, and you know, case in point, Roseneath Agricultural Society is not asking us for money. They haven't come before us and asked. What I'm saying is, you know, after the fact, we put money into that contingency to offset, you know, for years. And I got to tell you, to be totally honest, I have a twinge of guilt over that for how many years. I mean, I go back here to 2009 and likely way before then, this municipality, prior to this municipality, you know, the Alnwick municipality supported the Agricultural Society because of what they bring to the township. So,
and I don't argue that point, Sherry. I said at the very start, two great organizations, but there's rules to follow and there is a policy. And according to the acting clerk, we shouldn't be breaking the policy, or what's the use of making a policy? If anybody can come to us and say, you turned me down in September, but I'm going to call it an honorarium and I want to, the Grafton Green Thumbs right now don't even have to come and ask for an honorarium right now, because we've made an arrangement, a backdoor deal for them specifically, that all they have to do, like any other person, is show the receipts to the town and go ahead, go to the co-op and buy $300 worth of soil, show the receipt to the treasurer, and it's paid. And they don't want to do that. So how can we bend over more?
If they're in going forward, they're going to have to do that.
Well, why can't they do it now? That's what I'm saying. When
Because
Councillor
maybe they
Mike
don't
said,
have
well, we'll give them an opportunity that next year they know the rules really matter.
And
The rules-
next year they may be disbanded and we're paying $3,000 for another company or staff to do what they're doing.
The rules are the rules. I'm sorry.
Well,
There's
the
a lot
rules
of,
sometimes cost us more money, which has been in the past.
yeah, well,
And
that's all
every
conjecture.
policy does not fit every situation regardless of what that policy is.
Well, that policy to me, when I read it, is pretty straightforward.
Well, maybe
you
that's
d-
the problem with it. It's too straightforward and it's the policy that needs changed because these
to do
aren't,
that, then
these aren't
somebody-
outside organizations, outside the municipality. They're long-standing in the municipality, both municipalities and in the one municipality for years and years and years. And in my opinion, we can make that exception for this year. And the other thing is if we have new organizations come in, council has money in the council budget that we can spend how the need may be. And we've got now, we haven't had a Canada Day parade for 3 or 4 years. And I'm expecting, and now we have the Grafton Sports and Rec Club again coming forward and starting that parade. Every year they've asked for money since they took it over. So I imagine we're going to get a request for funds for that as well.
Pat, I know it's semantics, but in order for the Green Thumbs to get a honorarium, and in light of the fact that we want them to understand what the bylaw says, could they be asked to sign something on receiving the funds that guarantees they've read and understand the bylaw so that we won't have this problem next year? I know I've been doing a lot of that. The mayor's been doing a lot of witnessing of some things that I'm doing personally. And it just makes me think that, you know, if you have to sign off on something, then you better read it and understand it and be prepared to follow through. Is that just semantics in your mind?
You could require that of them. I'm not sure in a year's time that you would be having the same discussion.
Well, you just make it loud and clear. Like if after, you know, this time, don't do it again, or council changes the policy.
Uh-huh.
Now I've lost myself here.
Well, I think we've talked around it quite a bit. Jerry's hand's still up, but I think we need to make a motion and move on.
So all I wanted to say is, I think, you know, we talked about this earlier in one of the presentations about sometimes common sense has to prevail too. And the only decision that I can make right now is for this year. I can't make a decision sitting here about what's going to happen next year. And in fact, none of us might be around the table to determine what happens next year. We just have to have a clean conscience that we've done the right thing. And you know, I think it's a good thing we don't always agree.
Me too. And I don't always agree, and the mayor and I, we fight like dogs and cats.
And then we're friends.
And I totally agree with that, but I'm going to hold Pat to her word that I think if you're going to change a policy like this or break the policy, it should be a notice of motion and bring it towards the next council, and we'll have our little discussion again and then vote on it to make it official. I don't think this should be just a whim thing that we decide that, oh, we vote on it and okay, they can have their money, because I agree with the acting clerk. I know next year it's not going to make a difference with this one group. This one group, if they refuse to show the stuff now, if they refuse to show the receipts or financial, it's not going to change next year. And they'll play the same game with the next council. The Roseneath Fair is a totally different thing, right? They didn't get theirs in on time, and you know what, longstanding committee and everything, and maybe, you know, exceptions could have been made or something, but I think it has to be a notice of motion to change it.
And a lot of these groups hadn't even met because of COVID. I mean, they had chats among themselves maybe, but I don't think there was too many formal meetings.
No, but they were on August 1st, 2021. All organizations were sent a letter from the treasurer way before they had to. That's August, September, October, 3 months before they had to. If anybody had any questions or concerns, they should have asked then. And it even says on
September,
there.
the date I think was the end of
No,
September.
August 1st.
That they, no,
They were
the
sent a
end of
letter.
September to submit.
I think it was October. I could be wrong, but either way, it said on there, if
Doesn't
you
matter.
need any clarification or anything, contact the treasurer. And I don't believe anybody did. But like Councillor Phillips said, let's vote and move forward. And we
Yeah.
agree to disagree.
Right. I'd like to make a motion and yeah, I just like to make a motion to approve the grant or whatever we call it to the Hort Society for this year, but I would like Pat to pen a letter that outlines what the rules are, give them a copy of the bylaw at the same time and say that this is a, even though Sherry's right, you can only control one year at a time. I think they need to be made aware that this is a one-time deal and that they won't get, that they're going to have problems next year if they don't follow the rules.
So you're adding that.
Yep, somehow Pat can
Wait a minute, we've,
make that work somehow, Pat.
Can I ask, first of all,
we got the motion on the budget, so do we go
we need
back
to deal with
and
that,
first?
yes. This is not an amendment to the budget. This is
Okay,
a
so,
separate motion, but I did need clarification too when you get to that point, on
so
whether or not you're going to require receipts or not.
moved by Councillor Phillip to allow Grafton Green Thumbs to receive $350 for 2022. And along with that, a letter from the acting clerk explaining we've made an exception this year and attach the policy.
Yeah, and Pat,
Needs to be followed for 2023.
Yeah, and maybe Pat's right here. Maybe we should be asking for receipts somewhere in there.
Receipts will need to be.
We did
provided.
ask for receipts and they refused to give us the
Did
receipts.
they actually do that in writing that say that we're not going to give you receipts?
Well, they
No,
told
they,
us.
what's, Ralph said to me, we have open books anytime you want to see them. And I said, well, just send them in. But
But did you not say, Pat, that they indicated they didn't want to go the receipt way?
well, this way, Greg, they're going to be told they have to submit those receipts.
For
To
this year,
be,
or
to
next year?
be, for 2022, to be eligible in 2023.
They
is what-
basically
is
already
what
told you
I'm-
they're not giving you receipts.
Well, I'm not sure. I think we should give them that opportunity.
So, and there was two different people that I was dealing with. Ralph was the first person, and then Edith was someone who came on, she's replaced Ralph, so she was aware of the letter that I'd sent Ralph. Her comment, I don't think it's that they don't want to share receipts. I think her comment was because it's only, and I know $350 is a lot of money, but it's only $350 for them to keep track of receipts for $350. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Booth. I do. But I just need to know what you want me to send out to
I'd say
Grafton
just
Green
please,
Thumbs.
please keep your receipts, even if they throw them in an envelope and bring them in. We'll, for the 3 receipts, I'm sure that our treasurer won't mind for three receipts, totally $300.
So I need clarification because we're going back to where we were then at the start. Right now, we're sitting at, if they provide the receipts to Brian, the manager of Public Works, they get the $350.
Yes. So
Yeah. So,
Yes.
and Gail, can I just interject? When I started this conversation, about bringing this forward, it had slipped my mind that we had moved $350 into Parks budget
Yeah,
for Grafton Green Thumbs. So the money is there. It's not that we're trying to find money. We've got the money there. The question is, are we doing the right thing by allowing them to say, we want the money without the receipts, which we told you had to do in the first place?
well, the line 2 is from the treasurers, the auditors need the receipts.
If it's going through the budget. And if, to
Yes.
me, if it's in the budget and that's what we decided and that's what we've passed, that money is there and it is just $350, it should not be hard, almost with one purchase, to come back with one receipt for that.
Exactly. And it's going to be very difficult for Brian McMillan to not be able to show $350 was spent from his budget for gardening by the Green Thumbs.
Yeah.
So it puts him on the spot with the auditors. That's a good enough explanation for, and sometimes an easier thing to remember for small groups that think 350 or whatever isn't
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So I think initially when I started that discussion, it was that I hadn't remembered that money was set aside. That money is there for them and we willingly are going to pass it along, but we need confirmation from them because it's in the budget, because as Greg said, they chose not to follow protocol per our policy, which was fine. We moved the money into the budget and asked for the receipts. We're not asking to see their books. We're just asking to get receipts so that we can, follow proper accounting procedure. So
Yeah, and it's not going to hurt to mention the auditor.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do like around the base here and come back to, I think they need a letter saying that we've worked with them by trying to find a way to get them this money and that we're still requiring receipts, but we're happy to give them the $350.
Through the Public Works Director.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but I think Mike's made the motion.
But we had a motion on, that's the start. We had a motion on the floor to do with the budget, which you should deal with because Councillor Phillips' motion isn't an amendment
To the budget.
To the
I'm
budget.
gonna retract my motion.
Thank you.
Okay, just don't retract it yet. We'll go on with, you made the motion,
But can I also-
and Sherry seconded the motion regarding the 2022 draft budget. So we need to vote on that first before we go forward.
We just need to educate those folks. When you talk to her, to say, this isn't a big deal, and it's one receipt, bring it in to the office. And, you've got your money.
Okay, we got to satisfy Nicole here.
Yeah.
Can I call for a vote on the budget? The motion's made. All in favor? Carried. There you go, Nicole.
You're
Now.
Nicole.
You're done. Now
Now
you
I'm
can play
not
hooky.
sure.
Nicely done, Nicole.
Okay,
So I would suggest council pass a motion saying that they gave consideration to the honorarium, but they are sticking with the motion that you pass, and I'll pull that resolution that says that you require receipts. And I will explain everything to them about the auditor.
Tell them the money's there. The
yeah.
money's there.
So Mike's made that motion. That's just how you're going to word it.
That the council
That they-
gave consideration to their request for an honorarium, however, their resolution, and I'll put the resolution number stands, and they are to provide receipts for the $350.
And I just.
For their 2022 purchases.
So I'm just, so my motion just disappears. Right?
No, that's your motion.
Well, that is my motion.
now,
Oh, okay, thanks.
please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second it because it's the exact same thing as what we started with.
So Counselor Booth.
Do you want to sign this?
We can still.
Seconded by
Maybe
Craig
next
Booth.
council I'll sign it.
Hurry up, vote before he changes his mind. All in favor?
Now you're running, Mr. Booth,
Carried.
down the street.
Motion's carried.
But,
Now.
Nope,
next.
Sherry.
that does not, that also does not satisfy the discussion, though, I think, about the honorarium for the Roseneath Agricultural Society. And it makes sense, I think, while we're within the budget, we're talking about these, that we probably should bring that up and come to a decision on it. And I know they haven't asked for an honorarium, but I really feel, you know, because of the longstanding commitment the township has made to that society, we need to provide out of our contingency, the same as we've done in the last 2 years, which is $1,000. So whether I will make that motion if I'm able to, and if I'm not able to today, I can do a notice of motion later on.
Did we give them 1,500 last year or 1,000?
We gave them 1,021, 1,020, and in 2019 and prior 1,500, right back to 2012.
And when I think when I first started here again, it was still the 2,000. So perhaps that one.
Can I
should
make
be
a
notice
comment
of
on that
motion?
is,
Should be a notice of motion because
a comment on that. Deputy Mayor Gibson, just a few minutes ago, you said we're not going to worry about the future. There has been no request from the Roseneath Agricultural Fair for any money. So why are we even looking at this? Should not come to council until we receive something from them, and then we'll discuss it. And I'd also like to ask the acting clerk then, if it was voted on at that time back in September that they not receive it, are they allowed to even come back a second time and ask?
well, they were late. They applied, they were late. They got the letter, they were not eligible because they were late. Everything was sent in that was supposed to be.
And it was
And we
voted on and it
haven't
lost.
heard- We haven't heard from them since.
No, but it was voted on by council and voted 3-2 that they don't get the money. You can look it up.
Yeah, that's right.
So
But how,
maybe do a notice of motion, and then maybe the Pat can look into it to see whether or not everything is legal instead of us. But I just go back to what you said, Sherry, was a few minutes ago. Let's not look it to the future we don't know, probably they will, but until that time comes, why don't we get our ducks in order to find out if they're even eligible to do that?
and should they ask for reconsideration as the Green Thumbs did or reapply? Like how far do you want to go?
I don't mind doing that as a notice of motion because I think there's time. I just think that those two situations are a little bit different because one organization is saying they do not want to follow the rules and the other one just was late getting their package in. And to me, that should be given some consideration.
United Lake to Lake.
Okay, well, let's do notice of motion.
Okay, so Sherry, are you going to do that as a notice of motion?
Yeah, if I can do that right now. So I'll put in a notice of motion that we give consideration to providing funding in the form of, I don't know, honorarium to the Roseneath Agricultural Society and Fair Board in recognition of their longstanding partnership with the township.
Okay, that's good. We need a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Hogg. Any further comments?
No, other than I'm hoping the acting clerk will look into that to see whether or not that's can even fly.
All in favor? Carried. We've spent more time on that than the whole budget.
That's probably worth $350.
Good discussion, good discussion. Okay. We can move on now to item 10, administration, and it's a report from Pat Kemp, Water Services at the Roseneath Fairgrounds. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Alnwick Haldeman received the report from Acting Clerk Pat Kemp dated March 17th, 2022 regarding water services at the Roseneath Fairgrounds. Can I get that on the floor and we'll discuss it? And
I'll put it on the floor.
Greg put it on the floor, so I'll take you as a second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, this is about water testing.
So at the February 3rd council meeting, council had indicated that testing of the water at the Roseneath Fairgrounds was not included in our, in my report regarding non-residential water testing. So I did do some research and I did contact Barb Foreman from the Roseneath Agricultural Society. And she advised that prior to amalgamation that the former Alnwick Township always maintained that service. And it was provided under a recreation grant. And then when the amalgamation took place, Alnwick Haldeman Township carried on that service. She stated that the water at the cattle barn comes from the Alnwick Civic Center and that if the fair takes place in 2022, the water will need to be turned on for both the cattle barn and the midway usage. But that doesn't normally happen until September. And then Ms. Foreman also advised that they had not been charged. There's no charges to the Roseneath Agricultural Society for that service. And Lakefront Utilities, they have provided a key so that they could turn the water on. They looked after the UV lights and checked the testing of the water. And then if everything was okay, then they let the fairgrounds know, or Agricultural Society know, so that they could move forward. And then in the fall, they would turn off the water system so that it wouldn't freeze. Now, I was speaking with Larry, he indicated that it was from May until October, but it looks more like it's from September till October. And I did search, and so did Yolanda, trying to find an agreement where this is written down, but we could not find, we did find one on the grass cutting, which was mentioned earlier today. So I just want to make council aware that under the Safe Drinking Water Act, water must be tested prior to public consumption. And I'm not sure how many people attend the Roseneath Agricultural Fair, but there'll be a lot of people there and there is water being consumed. And as a staff person, I would suggest that you do have Lucy conduct the water testing.
But they don't they test it monthly at the ACC?
Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, and it costs us a fortune to have all these community centers tested every month or bi-weekly, whatever.
Yeah, and it's under the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Yeah, so what difference is it going to make if the water comes from that well out?
Because there's additional costs, about $1,320. Now, it hasn't been done since 2019 because of the COVID, but it's about $1,300 for the extra UVs and the extra testing. Again, I could not find where the Agricultural Society has paid for that. It has been the township that contributed towards that.
Yeah, and when you go to the fair, they're selling bottles of water. Like, I don't see anybody getting any out of a tap.
Now,
That's the cows.
Councillor Booth might be able to add something here regarding the carousel, which I wasn't aware until yesterday. So,
Yeah, if I can speak on this, just a little clarification because some information on here is not exactly true. Number one, the water is turned on in May and it's tested for 6 months from May until October by Lucy. according to the Safe Drinking Water Act, and I confirmed this with Lucy yesterday, is it states that if it's potable water, it must be tested by the owner. It is responsible of the owner to test the water. So my concern with this is, and I'll explain what it is in the Alnwick Community Center, we currently have 3 filters there. There's a charcoal filter and there's 2 sediment filters and a large UV light. That does all our water on the well at the community center. So in May, Lucy comes and they open up a valve that connects the community center to the barn. That's fine. If they wanted to use our water, they would be responsible for testing the water when they use it on their property. The issue is in their barn, they have another UV light and 3 filters, and we are paying for that. So we're paying twice. We're paying for the community center. When it goes to their barn, we're paying Lucy for them to test the water, plus change the filters, plus change the UV light. And then more research shows that the canteen, which is alongside Highway 45, we are also paying for the UV light and the filters in the canteen, which supply the washrooms, the canteen, and the carousel. So my issue is, I don't see why we're paying for the UV lights and the filters for the Roseneath Fair. Under the Safe Drinking Water Act, it's the owner's responsibility. That water is coming out of their facility. We are opening ourselves up to a huge liability. And we just talked about insurance with the treasurer of how much our insurance is going up and everything, that if there is ever an issue with the water of anybody getting sick in the canteen or the barn or whatever, then we're going to be on the hook for that because we're doing the testing and we're fixing and doing the repairs. I think it's time that we have to tell the agricultural fair, if you want to use our well water from the community center, that's fine. When it leaves our building, we've tested it and we've put the filters and everything. But if you're going to use it at your facility, you are responsible for the testing and you are responsible for all the maintenance of it.
Can I ask something here? There's only the one well, right, at the Civic Center?
No, I believe, according to Lucy, that there's a separate well for the canteen. The community center is not hooked up to the canteen. So the canteen has its own filter system and UV light, which totally has nothing to do with it, the community center, but we're paying the dollar for that.
That would be, and that's not Fairboard either. That's the Ball Diamond.
There's a well there, Jim, by the canteen.
Yeah, so I know. That's what I'm thinking. But who owns that? Is that not township, the Ball Diamond?
Well, the problem is we've always assumed the responsibility for it. And I think, you know, when we went into this discussion about the testing of the water, it's, if we're not going to do it, the Agricultural Society needs to know now that it's their responsibility. It's not so much about, you know, who's doing what and the money. They just need to know that they're responsible. And I think Greg makes a really good point about the owner has to assume responsibility. And I'm not sure, you know, that we want to assume that on behalf of the township when that is not our property. But again, they need to have fair warning about that.
And just to clarify, because the question was raised this morning about who and the property line. So I did speak with Jennifer during the lunch break, and everything within the fence line is the Roseneath Fair Agricultural. It's not ours.
Including the playground is not ours.
The playground, the Ball Diamond, soccer field and everything, that is all Roseneath Fair. That's not town property. So like I said, I have no issue if they want, they're using our well, obviously, from the community center, but as soon as they open that pipe and it goes out to the barn, you want to have your own filtration system in your UV light. That's up to you to pay for. I don't see why the taxpayer is paying twice to run it through a filter again and a UV light so that they can use it. And Lucy confirms they test it. It's for 6 months. It's not just turned on in September and used for October. And we can't take the chance, Mayor, when we say, well, it's the water in the barn. Who knows? I mean, years ago as kids, we all drank out of the hose, right? So who knows whether a kid or somebody gets a bucket of water from the barn and drinks it. I just don't think we should be liable for something like that.
Well,
And I
Lucy-
agree with you, Sherry. We need to just tell them that, listen, if you want Lucy to come turn the water on, and the issue is Lucy every year winterizes it. So they've taken the UV light and the filters out of the barn and they store them at the community center. So
Yeah.
Lucy now has to pick up those parts, go to the barn and install it all and get the water running, and then they charge us.
Lucy would probably have never known that that wasn't part of the township, responsibility.
Agreed. Larry just thought it was all part of the town and they sent the bill into the town like it was testing at Alnwick or Fenella or Centerton. They just sent the bill and as long as it gets paid, that's all they care.
And the carousel runs from May, the long weekend in May, every Sunday until fair time. Right?
And why would they need the second UV light at the cattle barn?
The only thing I can suggest, Jim, is maybe they've done testing and find that maybe traveling through the pipe or something, it's not 100%. So they wanted to be sure and put in another one. I don't know. I'm not a water specialist, but I know they've got it there. So it must be a reason, right?
Sounds like a money grab.
It's probably just the same thing you said. You don't know if somebody's going to turn on the tap and have a drink.
Right?
Water could be.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Troy?
Good information.
I was just going to say, maybe it's time that staff pull that agreement, which Pat already has, and just updated. A lot of these filters and stuff probably been added since that agreement has been drafted, and that maybe it's a good time to, maybe talk to the fair board, what is needed. Maybe there's certain things that aren't even needed anymore. I know the washrooms are totally down or should be tore down, but the discussion with them, update the policy, and we'll bring it back to council.
Might be a good idea to, when speaking with them, to actually meet them.
Yeah.
Executive.
Yeah, because they may not need all that. So we will discuss with them what is needed, tell them our plan, tell them what we're doing, and go from there. Bring it back to council.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to defer the decision on this until such, okay.
Yeah.
So are you
Well,
okay
thanks,
with
Greg,
that,
for doing
Greg?
that. That's
Defer
good
the
information.
decision.
Yeah, that's good
and-
until we can.
Because you made the motion and you second.
But
Mike?
as Deputy Mayor said, we do need to get back to them fairly shortly, right? If they're looking at turning it on in May, if it ends up that we're not going to pay for it, we need to tell them that they'll have to make arrangements with Lucy. And I'm sure Lucy would just pick it up and do the same thing and just send the bill to them. That's all.
Yeah, probably won't be much more than that.
Well, and perhaps our honorarium can be in that amount.
Now you're pushing it.
So if everybody's okay with that, to defer it, the motion by Greg will now be to defer this, the action on this.
Yeah.
I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Our
Thanks,
next,
Greg. I never knew any of that.
I didn't know that either. Report from Pat Kemp, acting clerk, restrictions after nomination day of lame duck. Be it resolved that the council of the township of Alnwick Halden received the report from acting clerk Pat Kemp dated March 17th, 2022 regarding the restricted acts after nomination day, in quotes, lame duck, and further that council pass the necessary bylaw later in the meeting under the bylaw section to delegate authority to the chief administrative officer. That'll be tough. And the municipal clerk under section 275 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001, as amended from nomination date to the swearing of the newly elected council. No, it won't, Troy. Have a mover? So you two? Okay.
Sure.
Greg and Mike, all in favor? Carried. You both had your hands up at the same time. Now the modernization fund. 10.3. This is spending with the modernization fund dollars we received from the province. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Alnwick Haldeman receive the report from the acting clerk dated March 17th, 2022 regarding the modernization fund, and further that council direct staff to proceed with a proposed list of items to generate cost savings for the township, and further that the cost be taken from the modernization fund. And they've listed those. So could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hogg, second by Deputy Mayor Gibson. Any questions or comments? Looks pretty good to where that money should go to help us out, put us forward. All in favor? Carried. So committee reports, number 11, this is Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee meetings of February 2nd. Be it resolved that the Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee meeting minutes of February 2nd, 2022 be received and filed. Could I have a mover, please? Sherry, seconded by Councillor Phillip. Any questions or comments from council? All in favor? Carried. Communications, item 12. This is about 140 pages, so. Be it resolved, this is from the annual summary report from Lucy regarding Grafton drinking water system. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Lakefront Utility Services, Inc., re 2021 annual summary report, Grafton drinking water system, be received and filed and placed on the township website. And further that council accept the 2021 annual summary report as presented. Have a mover, please.
I'll move that.
Councillor Hogg, second. I need a second. Councillor Booth. Any questions, comments? Be quite extensive reading. Had to get the magnifying glass out over the little tiny print. All in favor? Carried. 12.2 is correspondence from the town of South Bruce Peninsula. Municipal accommodation tax and crowned campgrounds. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the town of South Bruce Peninsula dated February 25th, 2022, municipal accommodation tax and crown campgrounds be received, and we need further direction from council on whether you wish to support this or receive and file. Could I have a mover, please? Have a mover to get this on the floor. Sherry, thank you. Deputy Mayor Gibson, second.
I'll second that.
Jim. Okay. Any questions, comments? Or is it a receive and file? It's talking about campgrounds, taxes.
So this really is just in support of other municipalities because it does not affect anything within our township.
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I'll second.
No, Jim's already seconded it.
Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Correspondence from the town of Collingwood dated March 3rd, termination of the town of Collingwood's membership in the Ontario Municipal Water Association. So be it resolved that the correspondence from the town of Collingwood dated March 3rd, termination of the town of Collingwood's membership in the Ontario Municipal Water Association be received and filed. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Phillip, second. Counselor Hogg? All in favor? Carried. Uh, 12.4, correspondence from Roseneath Agricultural Society requesting use of the former fire hall for the fair weekend. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Roseneath Agricultural Society dated March 3rd, 2022, reuse of the former fire hall for the Roseneath Fair weekend be received, and further that council direction is required here. So can we get a motion to get it on the floor? Sherry, seconded by Mike. The Fair Board is requesting the use of the former fire hall for their junior work exhibit, which they had the last time there was a fair, 2019, I think.
They used to use
20?
the school.
Yeah,
Where's the beer gardens going to be then? Because that's where the beer gardens used to be.
they'll have to be outside over in over by where the music is. That's the kind of move the beer gardens there
That's a
anyway.
concern.
That's where it was last time.
Yeah,
Outside.
So I will make a motion to approve that request. I think that in the last time they held the fair, that worked very well for them to have that use of the building.
okay. So you made the motion and Mike seconded. All in favor?
Oh, just a discussion.
Oh, still discussion? Okay.
Just want to make sure that if this passes, that the CEO is going to inform, I guess, staff or whatever, because last time I looked at the garage, it's stored to the hilt with stuff. So that stuff's going to have to be moved out or whatever. I know some of it will be, Troy, because it's the arena stuff, but I believe there's fire stuff in that in there too.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure that Brian and Dave are both well aware and plenty of time, because Dave does use it for training as well. So staff are starting to use that little facility, so they will, everyone will be aware of what's happening.
And I guess the other question is, does it have it in here, Pat, when they want it?
Yes.
The week of the fair. So
September 30th to October 2nd.
Okay, so same as the agreement we have with them with the community center, then they get it for the fair and one day after, and then they have to be, okay, thank you.
they get the ACC the week before, like through
There's a
the
time
week. Yeah,
specified in the agreement.
yeah. Okay, all in favor? Carried. 12.5, correspondence from the Honorable Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, dated March 7, and it's Getting Ontario Connected Act, and it's an introduction to that act. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Honorable Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, dated March 7th, 22, reintroduction of Getting Ontario Connected Act 2022, be received and filed. You have a mover? Councillor Hogg, second. Councillor Booth, all in favor? Carried. .6, this is correspondence from the Ontario Stone, Sand and Gravel Association. I mentioned it at our last meeting. And this is regarding CBM Aggregates Shelter Valley Pit. And they won an award for their progressive rehabilitation. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Ontario Stone, Sand and Gravel Association dated March 2022, CBM Aggregate Shelter Valley Pit receives OSSAG's Progressive Rehabilitation Award be received and filed. I'm going to add to it, and is it on the website yet? Okay, and further that it be added to our website and with the picture. Is there more than one picture, Pat? Just the ones? Okay. Looks pretty good. Interesting for people to see. Could I have a mover? Councillor Phil, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. And just so you're aware, I did do a letter congratulating them for winning that award on behalf of us. Bylaws, 13. This is bylaw number 35, 2022, being a bylaw to authorize the delegation of authority to the CAO and municipal clerk. Be it resolved that bylaw number 35-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the delegation of authority to the chief administrative officer and the municipal clerk or their appointed designate, authorized in writing by the CAO and or the municipal clerk in their absence for certain acts during the restricted acts after nomination day, August 19th, 2022, to the swearing in of the newly appointed council, be read and deemed to be passed the 7th day of March, 2022. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Hogg. Councillor Phil, second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Announcements and notice of motions. Oh, I guess I'm first. Brian, you're still here. I'm just wondering, Brian, have we moved forward at all with the community policing? We're interested in spending some of their reserves, and their idea was, as you know, on another speed sign. I didn't know whether you're recommending that, and if you got a, I know you got a price, but.
Are you talking about the Black Cats, Mayor?
Yes, yes.
I was just waiting till, like I said, once the budget was passed that, then I would move on that.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have an official motion from them. They keep talking about it at each meeting, and we haven't been meeting because they're a committee in limbo, I guess. But if I need to, they got to, the chair of the community policing got to me and said he had talked to the others and that's what they're in favor of.
Okay.
So do I need to go further than that, Pat, with the reserve? Have a meeting?
Should have a official resolution requesting that
From that?
from that committee to council.
Okay. I'll call a quick meeting of them and get that done. But you're just waiting for that then, Brian, and able to go once the budget's gone.
Yeah, and again, they were around, the price of those were around between $42 and $4,500, I believe.
Yeah, okay. And one or two?
Well, again, it is a big township. The two we could probably use two if council sees good in that. Like I said, we could spread them out. They can be moved around easily enough too, but two would be good. Their speeding is all over the place. People seem to go faster and faster, so we could move them around better if we had to.
Okay, well, I'll take that back to them as well. Thank you.
Yep.
County Council yesterday, Albert Botha made a presentation to the County Council. And so at this point, County Council is looking forward looking towards going forward with the one office and Northumberland County and it belonging to, or working with Ontario East for a film and production office out of Northumberland County to start that will work with all the other ones in the area. So in your spare time, you could become a star if you want a job. So just so you're aware of that, you're already a star. And what that will do will bring all the municipalities under one umbrella and it'll be under economic development. So hopefully that gets underfoot, I guess. Apparently for every dollar that's spent, $5 is returned to the communities. And I had a couple other things to ask. I just want to be sure. Roseneath Vitalization doesn't show anything in its budget, but I'm sure when it comes to November 11th, there will be the expense of them putting something on there. Maybe Jennifer Steen's aware of that. But it's not in their budget. They do have reserve money. And last year we ran into an issue and had to get $100. So you're aware of that, Nicole? I don't know whether it will come out of their reserves or if we'll just have $100 out of the council money, but I'm expecting it. And have the geraniums been stopped to the Roseneath Vitalization Parkette in place of perennials? Anybody know that? Because somebody was supposed to contact Yona's greenhouse. So if they haven't been ordered, I just don't want her to go ahead and order them thinking that that's what it's going to be. If there's going to be changes or if it's going to be left this year, that's fine. What do you think, Troy?
I contacted her right after that last meeting and they were already started or whatever. So it's what would she say? It was a couple $100. So we're pretty well committed to that. So
yeah, I think it's more than $200.
Yeah, I will look.
That's okay, as long as we know that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's all I had for today. Deputy Mayor Gibson.
Thank you. Recreation and Culture Committee, one of the members, Lori Devine, has pulled together some volunteers and is going to be hosting kind of their spring fling event. Mike, you were very involved in that in the past, on March 27th. So that'll be, you know, all those outdoor events. So I'm sure there's more information that's going to be coming when we hear more about it. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that event is likely on. And I'm sure that's March 27th is a Sunday when it will be held.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
With spring and the melting of snow, and being in the north part of the township, I always get several people stopping me about finding garbage on the side of the road. And, you know, it just happens. And, you know, it's always the standard, the elevator speech about how garbage is the responsibility of the county and just that education piece for people. But every year I always get a request for, can the township ask for more signage in this part of the township from the county that indicates that there are fines for littering. So I did say that I would bring that up. So I wanted to mention it, Brian. I don't know if you've got a contact, if you can just pass along that, you know, and I'm sure they're aware, and but that the complaints are coming in.
Sherry, you could email Adam McHugh.
I could do
directly.
I can
At the county if you wish.
I can do that, Mayor. I can.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
And I did get a message in between our meetings, between the Parks Master Plan and this meeting, in regard to what could the township be considering something for March break in future years. So I thought it was a good suggestion. I don't know if we've ever really talked about it, but I just wondered if we could just kind of throw it out there, Troy and Brian, for Jennifer, for, you know, next year, you know, when we're talking about summer camps, but, you know, is there something with our community centers sitting empty? You know, perhaps next year is a year to try something for the kids. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Phillip?
I just have a couple of things. Around our library meeting last Monday, a couple of things just to give you an idea of what's going on. First of all, the meeting was very productive, and it's a pleasure to attend these meetings. The highlights were that the performance reviews are underway, both at the CAO level and also at the staff level, and that review process is running smoothly. They're planning a staff meeting on Wednesday, March 23rd at noon to do some staff updates, workshop kind of thing, and discuss their plans moving forward, and staffing hours and so on. So just the business of running the library. And the other thing that I thought, and I have actually heard a couple that I thought were really effective, was that they're running radio spots now to promote the library. And that's running very well. That is essentially, those are just some of the highlights. Our meetings are usually fairly long, but substantive. So those are some of the highlights. Thank you. That's all I have for today.
Counselor Booth?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Counselor Hogg?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, I have one more thing. And just to let council know that we had a police service board meeting, and Counselor Phillip is now the chair of our police services board, and Andrew McConnell is the vice chair of our police services board. So
Congrats.
we still have Lauren and Debbie as secretary, so, and I'm still on it. So for this year, we makes the chair. So I just wanted everybody to know that. He accepted graciously too, so. I'll just go to the approval of the bylaw.
Yeah. Are the mics turned off now? Because I have a few things I want to say.
Not yet. Item 15, approval of the confirming bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw number 36, 2022, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council session held on Thursday, March 17th, 2022, be read and deemed passed the 17th day of March, 2022. Could I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Gibson and Councillor Phillip, all in favor? Carried. And motion to adjourn at 2:52 p.m.
Come on.
Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hogg. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. Enjoy your little one there.
Yeah, that was smooth.